me tell you about a friend. It's Craig LeBlanc where the good times never end. Talking Parks and Rec, it's a show you gotta know. Welcome one and all to the Daily Parks and Rec Show. It's the Daily Parks and Rec Show.
For you to be a healthy person, all 7 of these dimensions have to be aligned, firing off, and in good health. All these different aspects. When we started looking at this framework, we realized pretty quickly that parks and recreation is probably the only industry that can address health outcomes in each of those 7 areas. And we started getting really excited about what that meant for the field. Parks and Rec is not just this fun, we don't just run a basketball camp. Like, what are we really doing here, right? We're doing all these different things as an industry. So some of our work right now is how do we reposition, in the community, in the country, about what the role of Parks and Rec is.
Welcome to the Daily Parks and Rec Show Leadership Series. Today we're diving deep into the world of parks and recreation, a field that profoundly shapes our communities every single day. We're thrilled to host Dr. Joshua T. Medeiros, the incoming chair for the National Recreation and Park Association, NRPA. Dr. Medeiros is also the superintendent in Bristol, where he oversees a comprehensive parks and rec system that goes far beyond just green spaces. In Bristol, their department encompasses youth services, community and social services, and even a vibrant arts and culture division offering something for everyone. From maintaining beautiful parks and aquatics facilities to fostering community outreach and robust internship programs, their work touches countless lives. Join us as Dr. Medeiros shares his journey, highlighting the diverse career paths in Parks and Rec, from park maintenance and recreation to accounting and project management. Discover how this vital industry creates impactful change, leaving a lasting legacy in communities starting from day one.
Buggy. There we go. Okay, we're live. This is Craig LeBlanc again with another great show, last of the week. This is our 199th episode. That means the Youth Sports Mastery Show coming on right after this is our 200th episode. So it's kind of a little mile marker for us. And we've got a great special guest, Dr. Joshua T. Help me with the last name. I don't want to butcher it.
No, you're fine. Medeiros.
Oh, that was easy.
Yeah.
I thought it was going to have some accent or whatever. Medeiros is great. And he is actually the incoming chair for NRPA. So he's helping to guide that massive ship that has been serving the industry for so long, and we'll get to dive a little bit into that. A lot of social services, special events. He's got a lot of cool things. I think it's going to be nearly impossible to cram what we could talk about in 1 hour, so we might have to do a second episode for you. But we'll kick this off to help new listeners understand what we're truly trying to accomplish in serving this industry by creating a media company dedicated to this industry. And I think the explainer does a way better job than me. So we'll press play and we'll be right back with Dr. Joshua.
Welcome to DPRS Media Co., the first media company built for the people behind the Parks and Rec community. We don't just cover on Parks and Rec, we elevate it, we amplify it, we honor it. At the heart of everything we do is one mission: to serve the public servants, the professionals who design, maintain, and lead the parks that shape our communities. Under the Daily Parks and Rec Show, we produce 6 powerful platforms. Leadership in Parks and Rec, a spotlight on directors, superintendents, and visionaries shaping the future of public spaces. Facility maintenance, where the boots hit the ground, a deep dive into the systems, crews, and craftsmanship that keep our parks clean, safe, and beautiful. Young Professionals Network, shining a light on the next generation of Parks and Rec. Students, interns, and mentors sharing how we build a legacy together. Youth Sports Mastery, sponsored by National Academy of Athletics. This series is for coaches, parents, and rec leaders working to make youth sports fun, fair, and meaningful again. The Rec Room, hosted by the passionate leaders of Henry County Parks and Rec. This show brings frontline energy and real-life stories from the field. And the weekly Parks and Rec Post, our official newsletter delivering stories, insights, and community wins every week. We are DPRS Media Co., LLC, a media company with a mission to uplift the professionals who serve every community, every park, every day.
All right. So I did want to just, in general, thank you for serving on the NRPA board. I'm sure that massive paycheck you get from NRPA is the reason you did it.
Oh yeah, zero.
Volunteer paycheck.
Yeah, it's great though.
Yeah. Well, let's just go back to your journey into Parks and Recreation. How did you discover that? Were you like a park rat growing up, or did you discover it later in life?
Sure. I think like so many people that get into this field, you really like stumble into it. I don't know that I've ever met anyone that knew exactly what they wanted to do and got into it. But, I started out through the park and rec system. I went to summer camp as a kid. I grew up in Mystic, Connecticut, down by the shore. I got my very first job at 15 as a summer camp counselor in my town park and rec program. Started doing that, realized this was really fun. I loved it. It was my favorite job that I've ever had, and quickly became a camp director in the summer. My boss at the time, Cheryl, asked me to, hey, do you ever think about aquatics too? We have a pool. We need help with that. So I became a lifeguard. So I really started getting enmeshed in this work. Meanwhile, I was starting my bachelor's degree. I went to college to do journalism because I was the editor of the school paper way back in the day. And I was like, this is what I want to do. Quickly realized in college, I'm like, I don't really want to do journalism. Switched to a business degree, did a bunch of accounting classes, economics. And I'm like, what the hell am I going to do with this? I don't like it that much. Switch. I'm like, let me be a teacher. So then I switched. I was an English teacher major for a while. Didn't really want to do that. I think I switched to sociology at one point.
I love it.
Oh my God. I really didn't know what I wanted to do, Craig, until finally I started, talking to mentors and people that I was working with and realizing, wow, I could actually do this as a career, parks and recreation. That's awesome. And so I ended up getting a liberal arts degree, went back to school and got my master's degree in parks and rec. It was an amazing 2 years because I knew what I wanted to do, right? So did that, eventually went on to get my doctorate and have just worked my way up in the field ever since. So really the foundation of that 15-year-old camp counselor has brought me to where I am today.
Now, what were some of when you say it was fun and exciting, I think this is something I might want to do as a career. What were some of those fun and exciting things that really had you take a second look at the industry?
Sure. I think one of the first things that stood out for me is one, it's just a fun job. You're working with kids, you're working with young people. I guess I was a young person at that point too, but it's just a fun team kind of environment that I really, really enjoyed. It's also a space where you could be really creative. So I remember way back in the day, I was coming up with all the theme weeks for the summer camp and being really creative around that space. And I was just like, this is so fun. I can't believe I'm being paid to do this.
Yeah.
So some of that teamwork, that camaraderie, that creativity really let me see that this was a field that I could enjoy. And Craig, I think it's like every day was something different. And that's still the case, whether you were a camp counselor or now as superintendent in Bristol, every day is different. I'm never really bored, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So let's speak on that a little bit more, Dr. Joshua, as far as I think in other industries, you just have to grind at a low level for decades before you ever get really put in anything, in charge of anything substantial. But I have heard almost in every career path in Parks and Rec that at 23 years old, you get an entire senior center and then they walk away and you're like, wait, I really am leading this entire complex. Sure. Maybe speak a little bit more about the leadership opportunities you get literally at day one in Parks and Rec.
Sure. I mean, if you think about it, I was probably 20 years old, maybe, when I became that camp director responsible for hundreds of kids. And I look back at that, I'm like, wow, I can't believe that.
I can't believe they gave me, trusted me.
They keep going. Really, my first time role was actually in the city of Bristol. I was the aquatic supervisor running 3 city pools, right? It's a lot of responsibility. And I must have been 22 at that point. So to your point, you have these massive responsibilities. Kids' lives are in your hands. Patrons' safety are in your hands. All of these factors, you're responsible for hundreds of staff, or at least I was in my roles. And then that responsibility continues to climb. I think you keep demonstrating skill and competency, and you get more added to your plate.
Yeah. Yeah. And in so many other industries, the education almost stops and now you're just grinding, versus in Parks and Rec, it's almost like the real-time, in-person experiential education begins and never stops. And
Yeah, that's true, right? Like, I don't think I've ever held a position that I had this robust orientation program or
right.
onboard. It's really been a throw you to the fire and figure it out, right?
And,
And that's really been the
yeah.
case every day, right? I'm learning new things
Mhm.
as we go.
Yeah, and like yourself, I've spoken to people that retired from the industry after 40 years, and they were like, "Yeah, I was learning until the day I retired.
Yeah,
I never
no,
stopped."
that's true. Yeah, absolutely.
And maybe speak about the different, because I know sometimes the false illusion is that, well, I'm not a sports guy, or that there's only one degree that works inside of Parks and Rec. Talk about all the different varying skill sets that Parks and Rec employs.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of hit on it, right? Like, there's so many different career trajectories. Parks and Rec, we like to say it's really, there's something for everyone, right?
Mhm.
In my department alone, we employ park maintenance staff. So if you like to work outdoors, you like to work with your hands, you want to get on a lawnmower, you want to maintain ball fields, you want to, do all that work, we got space for you. If you're passionate about swimming and aquatics, there's coaching opportunities, there's leadership roles there.
Mhm.
We have marketing coordinators that work for us, community outreach workers. You want to get out in the community, build relationships, and support the department. There's a role for you, right?
Mhm.
You love kids, you're passionate about that work. There's spots in recreation. You like the fitness track or sports track, there's positions aligned with that too. So I think what's so exciting about this field, there's just so many different opportunities and different niches that people have. And I think when I got in, my first full-time role was this aquatics role. And it was a space that, like, I didn't know that I was going to start off there, but it really was such a niche thing. There's not a lot of people out there that were lifeguard instructors, water safety instructors, had these types of credentials to do this work, but there really is something for everyone. So I think if you're thinking about a career in Parks and Rec, definitely start exploring it. And NRPA has a great career board of roles across the country, everything from senior center managers to park managers, park rangers, etc.
Let's keep naming a few more. I think
Yeah.
another one is just accounting. So if you have an accounting
Mhm.
background, we need somebody in accounting. If you have an arts degree for graphics design, we need someone in social media and
Oh my God,
creating
yeah.
promotions for special events. What are some other few that just are top of mind that we can help? Shoot, if you're in engineering, project management,
Oh
is
yeah.
master planning. I mean, there's so many skills needed to run a multi-trillion-dollar real estate portfolio that sit in the hands of Parks and Recreation. It's not
Yeah.
just coaching young kids. There's so much more to
I,
it.
I think, and I think that's the perception that a lot of people have. And I know when I started in Bristol, we even joked. I had a board member who kept saying, "Oh, we're the fun department. We're the fun department." And I said, "Yes, and we're all these other things, right?" And I think people, the lay public, doesn't understand how much really goes into the field of Parks and Recreation, right?
Yeah. And then you can also look at it as, yes, you get a paycheck. They actually do pay you to be in Parks and Rec, uh, and you get great benefits typically. But you're making a difference in people's lives, leaving a legacy, impacting your community, and you don't have to wait till retirement to start working with some nonprofit. You can start on day one making a difference.
Right.
To me, that's additional versions of paycheck, because sometimes you're working so hard 40 hours a week, given the best years of your life, and you're like, am I really making a difference aside from this paycheck?
Yeah.
Not in Parks and Rec. You're making a difference from day one.
Yeah, and I know that's, frankly, it's what's driven me in this profession, is that you do feel the work you're doing is impactful. You do see the benefits of your hard work. I drive down the street, I see parks that we've renovated that I'm like, yeah, our team did that, right? That wasn't there before. You see people enjoying fitness equipment, different things that we've done. It's almost like that, I don't want to say instant return, because nothing's instant, but it's that return on, wow, like, we are making an impact. And I don't know that everyone feels that way out in the world in terms of different professions, right? So I think that's something unique, definitely unique to Parks and Rec.
Yeah. Is there any story you'd like to highlight as far as a little kid later in life coming back and saying, hey, you made a difference? What's the most impactful story that you've heard or that you've personally been involved with?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many, Craig, but some of the ones that stand out, we've had a lot of kids. I think you kind of opened it about Park and Rec kids. We've had ones that have come through the programs. I'll give one example. someone in our office, Madison, is amazing. And she started off as a camp counselor, went into the CIT program, became a camp counselor, made her way up to a director. Again, kind of reminding me of myself in a lot of ways. This full-time role came open as our recreation assistant. She applied for that job, and we put her in that role. So she's someone that's really come up, and I would say it's changed her life in that you start as a kid and have seen that return on investment right out the gate. So I think that's just a really cool example. We have many people that follow that track too, but we get told all the time about how amazing the park system is, and people just don't have that in every community. So we take a lot of pride in what we do here in Bristol.
Yeah. Okay. So this might be a great time to talk about,
Sure.
So those of you listening, Bristol could have one of the best internship programs in America. And I say this because I've legitimately interviewed them and to tell me about your internship program. And it's usually, oh yeah, we need to do that. And that's the extent of their internship program. Y'all's internship program is, if I heard you right, 8 interns a year, for been doing it for at least a decade. Tell us about that internship program and what it means to those interns.
Sure. So in 2019, our department evolved. We were no longer just a Parks and Recreation department. The city's Youth Service Bureau, Community Services, Social Services merged into our department. A couple of years ago, we created an Arts and Culture division. So with that, the department grew, and we knew we needed more support. We wanted to create more educational opportunities. So across the department, we have interns working in recreation. We have interns, a dedicated intern for arts and culture that are helping at the theater, right? These are people that are interested in theater and events and that kind of track. We have other interns tied specifically to youth and community services. These are social work interns trying to get their master's in social work. So just across the department, we have so many different students that are looking for opportunities to get experience towards their education. And we love that we're able to provide that. And some are paid, some are not, a lot of it is depending on their school program and what we can afford. But it's been a great program, and some of these interns have come back and have worked for us. So we'd love to see that too.
Yeah.
It's crazy to me that you think it's one of the top intern programs. I'm amazed that there's not more people taking advantage of intern opportunities.
Yeah. Out of a test pool of roughly approaching 500 Parks and Rec departments that I've gone deep with, put you in the top 5 nationwide.
We like that.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I wish it was common.
Yeah.
So maybe give, and I don't know how much you can speak on this, but let's say you're creating a 101 roadmap for departments to start an internship program. What are some first steps that you would recommend to kind of get it going?
Well, I think for us, it was really looking at, okay, like what are the needs, right? Like what would we bring in? What would we bring a student in to do and learn, right? It's all about learning opportunities. So thinking about what are the needs, what would students want to be exposed to? We also, even though the interns are tied to usually a division of our department, we try to get them exposure to all different aspects of the operation. So I think you want to have some strategy around what are the needs, what is that summer experience or year-round experience. We have interns during the year too. What does that experience look like? You have to define some of that as a department, and then you start having those conversations with the school systems because they have requirements too, right? Like they have to do a certain amount of hours. Sometimes they have to do special projects. So a lot of that is in consultation with the school, right? What do they need? What do we need? And then that kind of merges together. But, with anything, an intern program, it takes work, and sometimes some interns are super engaged, others are not. So you do have to just kind of recognize, do I have the capacity and time to invest? Because we don't like to treat them as just, okay, they're another worker. It really is an educational learning experience, and there has to be time and commitment dedicated to that.
Yeah. But really, I mean, let's just say we're talking numbers. You're getting someone pursuing their master's or in college. These are highly educated people, very intelligent people, and you're getting them at a lot of times a minimum wage or $15 an hour rate. And when they graduate with their master's, now you're going to pay premium for that. And so you're able to get very capable people at a discounted rate.
Sure. Yeah.
It would seem. Um, Now, how do y'all fill that pipeline? Do y'all have, I'm assuming y'all have great contact with, is it the actual professor teaching the class, or tell me about your relationships with the universities that are feeding you these interns?
Sure. So one of the strongest relationships we have is actually through Southern Connecticut State University. I think it
Mhm.
might be the only, I believe it's the only school right now that's even offering a recreation degree anymore. I'm
Mhm.
also an adjunct professor down at the school, so it kind of helps. It's my alumni. I graduated from them with my bachelor's and master's, stayed connected. So it's also a pipeline. Like I've reached out to students in my own classes, say, hey, we got all these internship opportunities. The trouble is New Haven's farther away from Bristol, so not
Mhm.
everyone can commute, but we try to establish those relationships. We have other relationships, especially with UConn and their social work school, Tungus Community College. So different staff people have different relationships, and we put those advertisements out so people know that they're there.
Yeah. And I think one of the problems that college kids face once they graduate and they've got their little piece of paper, let's say they graduate in engineering, and then you go apply for a job, and the first question they ask is, what experience do you have?
Sure.
And so maybe talk about how important it is to, in your college career, even before, to get into the industry either through volunteer or some type of internship program, so that when you graduate, you can be sitting on what, 5 to 7 years of experience in the
Oh, yeah.
industry.
Well,
Um,
I always like to say, Craig, that I think there's no bad experience that you can get. And I know it's really hard, I think, to break into the field of parks and recreation. In so many ways, there's limited opportunities, right?
mhm,
Right now, we don't have any vacancies in my department. And sometimes that can be years before we make a posting, right? So it's hard to get in places. Experience is critical, but there's also so many other things we look at. But with
mhm,
that said, when I was coming up through the system, I took every opportunity I could, right? I volunteered with the state association, the Connecticut Recreation and Parks Association, got really involved there, joined their board of directors to get experience in that realm. I also reached out to other towns to say, hey, do you have any? I saw part time opportunities working a special event, helping out with their swim program. So I started, even though the full time jobs weren't there, I started getting all that experience.
mhm.
Internships are a part of that, but the more practical, real experiences you can get, the stronger you'll be when these full time jobs do open up. So
Right.
to me, it's about don't turn down any opportunity, especially when you're younger and really need to start getting that portfolio built up.
Yeah, because because if your day one is, the people looking to hire you is like, "Oh god, we gotta train this guy from 0
Mhm.
to get him to where he's more and more useful," you can actually get that training now through these opportunities that you're speaking about. You don't have to wait until graduation. There's
Mhm.
so many opportunities that you can get in and get some exposure to it. I would encourage all college kids to start now, in Parks and Rec. Don't
Yeah.
wait until graduation when you need a paycheck.
It's true, but I think we look at to me, I look beyond just the experience levels, right? We were always looking at who's hungry for the job, who's
Yes.
committed, who's dedicated, who's excited, who brings energy. Experience is one thing, but it's also you can train people in different aspects, but you can't usually train fixing bad attitudes
Yeah.
or lack of work ethic and things like that. So we're looking at all that, who fits in with the team, etc.
Yeah, a lot of my entrepreneurial mentors would say, "Craig, I can answer your questions, but I can't put the fire in your belly. If you're not hungry, that's on you."
Mhm.
You know? I
True.
can't I can't give you passion. That's your job.
Mhm.
Um, all right, so let's talk about your involvement in NRPA. When did that start? And, now you're going to the peak, which is volunteering to be chair of the board. What was that journey like from when you first got exposed to NRPA to where you are today?
Sure. Yeah, I've been on the board of directors for I believe over 6 years now. I started off. I just applied out of the blue. I'm pretty sure there was a call for board members. I wasn't expecting anything. I don't even know what my job was, but I might have been. No, I was. I think the Parks and Rec director in the town of Cheshire. Got a phone call. They said, "Hey, we want to interview for this position." Interviewed, and they welcomed me on the board. At that point, I was one of I think only two young professionals serving on the board. I'm assuming I kind of took up that slot. I had my academic background and my practitioner background. I think that
Mm,
was attractive to them. From that time, there's been a lot of changes at NRPA. I started with one president and CEO. Now we have a new one, Christine Stratton, who's phenomenal and fantastic. The board has evolved and changed. NRPA as an organization has changed a lot too. And started getting involved in different committee works, eventually became chairs of various committees. So for years, I chaired the governance committee for NRPA. So then I became responsible for recruiting and attracting new board members with my team. I've sat on strategic planning committees. NRPA has a new strategic plan that is really rooted in what we're trying to accomplish in the field. And I serve on the audit committee. So when the opportunity came up to be the chair, I went for the opportunity, and I had a lot of support from my colleagues that just saw my work ethic and saw what I was able to do in those 6 years. Really excited for the opportunity to come in and be in this top leadership role at an exciting time with this strategic plan, because I think there's a lot happening nationwide that I think NRPA can play a big role in supporting professionals through this time.
Yeah. And so help me understand the structure of NRPA as far as like, what is it, like 30 board members, they serve for 2 years, and then you've got like a leadership team that you're now involved with. What does it take to run that?
So the board terms, you get a 3-year term. We bring people on for a 3-year term, and then you actually have 2 extensions. So for a while, it was only a 2-year term. So you'd max out after 6 years, you'd be out. Through governance, we started talking about, okay, is that enough time to foster the right leaders to come up through the executive committee to become the chair of the board? We kind of realized like it really wasn't, because your first term is all about learning, figuring out the organization. I'm still learning things and figuring out about the organization all these years later, because there's so much that NRPA does. It's impossible to know everything.
Yeah.
And then your second term is really about leadership development, chairing committees. And then in theory, your final term could be this leadership trajectory of becoming the board chair, right? So it's a total of a 9-year term. The new term, I'm actually, I think, one of the first people on the board to serve an additional term, which is pretty exciting.
Yeah, that is. And I'm really glad y'all kind of made that shift, because otherwise, just when you get to know what you're doing, you're kind of...
Well, it's so interesting, because I remember when I started, they're like, okay, it's a 6-year like max term. I'm like, oh my God, that's a long 6 years is like, that's forever. And then when I was coming up on my last term, I'm like, how is this over already? Like, I can't even, COVID was in it, so it was a little weird, but definitely looking back, I'm like, how did the time fly by? So to have this last term, to have a chair opportunity, I'm just so excited to keep this work going, because you never want it to end. It's so exciting being involved. But we put the limits in place for a reason, right? We want new people, new blood circulating through, new ideas to keep NRPA fresh and connected to the field in the right ways.
Yeah. There was a book that I read. It was by Malcolm Gladwell. What is the name of that book? It was one of his biggest ones. Underliers.
Okay.
Not Underliers. Shoot, I'll think of it. Outliers. And one of the chapters was, where does mastery come from? And as he started to study the true masters like Mozart, Michael Jordan, anybody that wants to reach a high level of mastery, that mastery level usually kicks in at around 10,000 hours of dedication to one subject matter. And so it would be crazy to term limit you out at the 7,000 hour mark, because you really haven't really gained that expertise yet. And so I'm glad to see that you're doing that.
Yeah.
Anything else as far as so what does it mean to, as a chair, what are you seeing like the opportunities are? How do you help to guide the ship? And then kind of what do you think the future looks like 5 to 10 years down the road for NRPA?
Sure. Yeah, I think my role is, as I mentioned, we have a really strong president and CEO in Christine Stratton. So her and her leadership team, they're doing the bulk of the work, right? Like the staff, we know the staff are always on the ground level. They're running the programs. They're running our upcoming conference, which anyone listening, register now, September 16th to the 18th. We're going to be in Orlando. It's going to be great. They're doing all of that work. At the board level, we're really trying to support them in getting the resources that they need to do their jobs, right? This strategic plan that we did, it was, I think, a 2-year process that I sat on the strategic planning committee talking to a lot of stakeholders, talking amongst the board, talking to business partners, different people in the field to really think about what are the major issues and how can NRPA be there. So I think as a board, and certainly my role as chair, is to make sure that we're delivering on all the promises that we've made in this strategic plan and being ready to respond to these issues that are coming up, right? There's a lot happening across the country, especially in the realm of federal funding dollars and things that are really impacting park systems nationwide. And how do we respond to this place that we're in right now? And what does that mean for the future? So really trying to leverage our strategic plan to think about systems change was really a big theme out here. Basically meaning we can't do it all as Parks and Rec, even though we feel like we can solve all the world's problems. But we need to think more strategically about, okay, who are the partners we need to have at the table? How do we build up leadership and the profession to be ready to deal with these emerging challenges of the future? And that's really a lot of our focus.
Yeah, and I don't see federal funding, state funding, grant funding. I think those markets will in perpetuity be volatile. And so, what are some of the solutions that are kind of percolating to the top to compensate for an unstable funding market that we could often find ourselves in, not just now, but I assume a lot of this will stay inconsistent forever.
Well, I mean, I think it depends on what's happening, obviously, in the political landscape. But some of the things that we're doing, particularly in Bristol, I'm thinking a lot about funding. We did recently get a $4 million matching grant from the federal government. There was question for a brief period if we were actually going to see that money, because that program has gone away. I guess they're no longer offering it. And I think we're one of the last recipients, but we haven't gotten the money yet, but we think we're getting the money. But anyway, my point is we're looking at different mechanisms that may not be traditional in Parks and Rec. We're thinking about fundraising, right? We created a Friends of the Parks and Rec Fund through our local Main Street Community Foundation as a way to channel donations so people can get their tax credit for contributing to the department. So that was something that wasn't in place. We're actually working right now to kind of evolve that to the next level and create a park foundation in the community to actually serve as that philanthropic arm, because in government, we can't count on federal dollars. We can't even count on local dollars right now because taxes are what they are. Certainly in Connecticut and our city, we're facing a lot of challenges. So trying to see, okay, we're outside dollars, outside partners, outside philanthropic individuals that we can engage to bring money in to support things that maybe historically have been funded by communities. We don't know where that's going to go in the future. I think also thinking about regionalization, thinking about mergers, opportunities to tie things together and not work in silos. I think those are going to also be strategies and things that are happening across the country as we keep dealing with these budget challenges and unstable funding.
Okay, so we're going to take a short commercial. I can't believe that was 30 minutes. We're going to take a short commercial break to promote our next show, which is the Youth Sports Mastery Show, hosted by Aaron Locke, who has 40 years of mastery in youth sports. But Dr. Joshua, if I could have you think about the different stakeholders, help us define what that means, and then maybe show how it's not just vendors or it's not just big park systems that maybe can contribute, but what are some other stakeholders? And we'll talk about that when we come right back.
Sounds good.
At DPRS Media Co., we don't just create content. We elevate community through storytelling. Now, we're proud to introduce the newest addition to the family. Welcome to Youth Sports Mastery, the podcast where champions are shaped, not just on the field, but in life. Hosted by National Academy of Athletics founder Aaron Locke. Youth Sports Mastery dives deep into how youth sports can empower kids, strengthen communities, and build leaders. From coaching culture to recreation strategy, and from player development to parent impact, every episode brings game-ready insight from the people making it happen. Youth Sports Mastery goes live every Thursday at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Only on the Daily Parks and Rec Show, sponsored by National Academy of Athletics and powered by DPRS Media Co. This is where purpose meets play.
All right, so that show's coming up at 1:30. All things youth sports, from coaching, officiating, athletic directors. We get some of the best coaches and athletic directors in America. Why? Because we call them and get them on the show. So if you want to hear all things youth sports, that's the show dedicated to it every Thursday. All right, so stakeholders. What is a stakeholder? Who are the old guard? Obviously, just maybe vendors that do business with Parks and Rec and NRPA. But what are some of the other buckets that you're discovering, and then maybe even define who are the old guard, and then who are some other additions y'all have had to find?
Yeah, I think to me, I don't know if it's like an old guard versus new guard kind of mentality. What we're trying to do at NRPA and what we're adopting locally is this framework of the 7 dimensions of wellness. I'm not sure if you're familiar, but
explain that.
This is something that came out of our strategic planning process, that the 7 dimensions of wellness is a health framework that it's been around for a long time. It basically says, Craig, for you to be a healthy person, all 7 of these dimensions have to be aligned, firing off, and in good health. So it's physical health, social health, mental health, financial health, environmental health, emotional health, all these different aspects. When we started looking at this framework, we realized pretty quickly that Parks and Recreation is probably the only industry that can address health outcomes in each of those 7 areas. And we started getting really excited about what that meant for the field. And so when we talk about partnerships, we talk about stakeholder groups, we're trying to evolve that thinking, and that Parks and Rec is not just this fun, we don't just run a basketball camp. Like, what are we really doing here, right? We're affecting health outcomes. We're teaching social skills. We're teaching improving physical health. We're creating, through scholarship programs, through economic development opportunities, we're creating financial stability. We're doing all these different things as an industry. So some of our work right now is, how do we reposition in the community, in the country, about what the role of Parks and Rec is, right? It's no longer just about, hey, the Park and Rec just runs the local basketball league. No, we're trying to position in Bristol as we're an essential health provider, right? Doing all this work through our department. So when we think about partners, like, we're now talking about, okay, what role does Bristol Hospital play? Wheeler Clinic, different health agencies to think about, hey, we're at the table too, not maybe in the traditional sense as a hospital, but we're a part of that community cog that's creating healthy situations across those 7 dimensions. Especially uniquely in our department that we have social services, we have a lot of challenges with unhoused populations here in Bristol. We're working with a lot of nonprofits as partners to say, okay, how do we collectively come together to deal with these issues that may not have been traditional Park and Rec issues, but are now community issues affecting parks, affecting people. How do we look at that? Furthermore, too, right, environmental justice groups, environmental sustainability models, these are different things that I think come into that overall conversation when we talk about the future of Parks and Rec. And I think repositioning, and kind of what I love about the show, Craig, and why I wanted to come on, is that you're giving a platform, I think, to raise the profile of this industry. And I hope what I'm trying to communicate today is that we need to keep doing this work. And as practitioners listening, we should be doing this every day in the community. I think if we're still operating from this position of like, hey, we just run the fun summer camps, that's not going to be sustainable long-term in terms of funding. I have colleagues that nonprofits are taking over recreation away from the municipalities because of funding issues and challenges. And it's going to be interesting to see where it goes. But I think the more we're positioning ourselves as essential providers, especially in this health and wellness realm, I think the better off we'll be, because there's a limited amount of issues out there, right?
Yeah. Well, my promise to the audience is this is my full-time gig, and there's 6 of us working 50 to 60. I'm probably working 80 hours a week on this. So we'll probably have 10 team members by the end of the year. So we're going to keep, beating that drum, creating a platform for men like yourself to just come up on here and let us know what we're doing, because I think when we say the words like police, hospital, even nonprofits that work with homeless, those are all reactive organizations.
Mhm.
And so maybe speak about how Parks and Rec is the proactive side, where you can actually decrease the workload on hospitals, police force, homelessness issues,
Yeah.
having healthy park and rec departments. Is there anything you can say about that?
Absolutely. So a lot of what we're doing with the 7 dimensions, so it's a national framework that NRPA adopted. Because I was part of the process, I'm like, you know what, we should adopt that framework in Bristol. So we're actually looking right now, all of our programs and services, we're putting them into buckets, if you will, around, okay, what programs that we're offering right now give you social benefits? What are giving environmental benefits? What are, looking at those different things, because we want to be able to go back to the community and say, measuring the data, right? Like program outcomes. Okay, are we improving emotional health of people in our programs? And if so, we're going to then communicate that number out. So we're trying to build that case locally to say, hey, here's the impact, because it's all about impact, right? Here's what we're doing to prevent, like you're saying, prevent poor health outcomes. We're running drug-free community programs, right? Because we're trying to combat the opioid epidemic and drug overdoses and things that we're seeing in the parks, out in the streets, through these services, to be not reactive, right? But to be proactive about what are the issues facing the community right now, today, and into the future. So we're being very strategic about what we're offering, why we're offering it, and how that gets communicated out. And I'll give you swim lessons as another example, right? Like, it's a traditional program offered by many departments, and we're trying to challenge the thinking of like, why are we really offering this core service? It's not just about, it's trying to amplify that this is an essential life skill. This is a core service. We're saving kids and adults' lives by teaching this essential service, right? So it's repositioning, I think, services that we've been offering for a long time in a way that we think will land more impactfully.
Yeah.
Certainly with funders, with city stakeholders that, to your point, are going to be prioritizing funding for departments like police and fire that I think are traditionally seen as essential.
Yeah. And you really have to look at it with a longer vision, because let's just say you're fighting depression, and that causes you to be overweight, and now the hospitals are involved to get your weight under control, and you have no social network. So you're kind of alone, you're overweight, you don't have an active lifestyle. And so that's when the hospital step in. But if we take where depression came from, it could be because you have no social network, you're not taking swimming classes, you're not doing pickleball, whatever. And well, that's the realm of Parks and Rec.
Right.
So,
and I think I'm loving that you're saying this, Craig, but I think the problem that we face as a profession is that I don't think when people are like, oh, I'm facing depression, I'm facing this, like, you might think traditionally, like, okay, they should go see a therapist, they should do, support, whatever. I don't know that people automatically will jump to, they should be signing up for Park and Rec programs, or they should be looking at Parks and Rec offers a social hiking club, right? I think we're trying to position things where people are starting to think about us as essential health providers to deal with social isolation, to deal with depression in ways that may not be traditionally thought of, right? So I think it's really trying to be out there to say, hey, we are this provider. Think about Parks and Rec, invest in Parks and Rec, because we're out here doing the damn job,
Gosh, yes. I love that framework. Say more about we are the social health providers. Like, define that a little bit more.
Yeah, I think we've talked as a staff team, right? Every year, I'm sure across the country, right? We're not unique in this challenge that they're always looking at, okay, how can they save money? What can they cut? In Parks and Rec, libraries, social services, senior centers, right? Sometimes we're on the cutting block more so than other departments. So we started really talking, what makes us essential, right? Because I know people in the field that don't even think that we're essential. I've had friends even say, well, we need police. We don't really need Parks and Rec. I'm like, I completely disagree. And so I think we started talking about how do we make ourselves essential? And I think we've talked about this alignment with the 7 dimensions that, look, we're all about healthy people. Because at the end of the day, right, we all want to live long lives, have good quality of life. This framework really positions us in a way to, we're going to deliver that for people, right? We want you, Craig, and our community to be healthy, happy, having all these things. Now it's like, how do we do that? And how do we connect you to these opportunities to improve your social network, to improve your emotional competencies, and young people, to keep young people out of jail and out of these things that we're seeing, right, out in the community. So I think we're taking more of an approach. What are the problems in the community, and how is Parks and Rec stepping up to address those problems?
Yeah. That reminds me of that old philosophical quote that said, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure.
Yeah.
And it is just simply more expensive to deal with someone that find themselves involved in the criminal aspect later in life than it is to involve them at a younger age in youth sports.
Yeah.
It's just cheaper.
I think the problem too is like, it's so hard to quantify some of this stuff. So we've, obviously I have my doctorate, right? Like I'm big into data and research. And what I'm really trying to do here in Bristol is install a culture of data, a culture of decision-making around data, and being able to communicate that data out and what it really means, right? Because it's hard to say with that example you just gave, how do we link it back and say, you know what, Park and Rec prevented these kids from ending up, like you said, preventing them from being obese or preventing them from being depressed. It's hard to make that link, but that's, I think, the work that we need to do more of and really show the value of what we're doing. Because you can see, right? You can see, okay, how many people are in jail? But you don't always see the people that were saved, right, from participating in programs. So it's hard to capture those stories. But I think that's some of the work that we're certainly trying to do over the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah. And like you said, the problems never show up if they're handled early on.
Right.
So then it's hard to pitch the value. But just maybe an analogy is, do you want to find yourself in your 40s with 10 prescription meds to deal with your problems, or do you want to work early on to never need those down the road? Because if you neglect your social life, your community, your personal health, then you can project in 20 years you're going to be having some other issues if you keep neglecting. And a community is the same. It's like a healthy body, a healthy community, same thing.
Right. Well, and I think that's where like this need to invest in Parks and Rec is critical, right? Because you won't, if you're not investing, that health is going to erode, right? Healthy communities thrive when there's high quality parks, people have access to high quality parks, close to their home, right? I think that's essential to what we're trying to do to make healthy communities healthier across the country.
Yeah, and I think in that framework, thank God for COVID, because it just blew up the need for Parks and Rec, where we may have not have discovered it at this pace without it. Because I don't know about y'all, but in New Orleans, our parks were there was no empty park benches. Like it was just crowded with people.
Yeah. Well, we've talked about that a lot, right? I think during COVID, you couldn't really, I don't think anyone could deny the power of parks during that strange period with that pandemic, right? Same thing, like we never closed. We had to close with the state guidelines, but the parks were open, right? We had spaces open. To your point, people were out using the spaces. We couldn't give enough space for people to social distance and walk and stay active and stay healthy and stay engaged. But now how do we capture all those feelings that people had around the parks out of COVID, now that the years are distancing from that? How do we still keep that momentum going? I think that's also part of the conversation with that essential service, right? Like I would argue that during COVID, like we were absolutely essential.
100%.
People were losing their minds, cooped up. And if I know me personally, right, if I couldn't have gone out to go on a hike when everything was closed, I would have lost my mind. So I knew personally the value of parks. And I think, how do we keep that conversation going to stakeholders, decision makers, funders that we want to get invested in parks? I think that's part of our storytelling work that needs to be done.
Yeah, and we are definitely part of that storytelling arm that have kind of been our mission from the beginning, is not just to understand the story to be told, but then try to make it in a more consumable way, and then of course create a platform that this story could be amplified out.
Yeah.
It really is important for you to understand the story of Parks and Rec and then tell the story.
Yeah. And I think it needs to be told in a couple different ways, right? I think a lot of times you're talking to a lot of Parks and Rec professionals on the show, and I'm sure we're all saying similar things. And I think in a lot of ways we're our own what is that called? Like
Your own worst enemy?
what's that?
Your own worst enemy?
No, I was going to say, like, we're more like, we can talk Parks and Rec together. We get the value of it. But as you kind of branch out from the profession, it's like, do the lay people in the community understand the work that's happening? Do the decision makers, right? The mayors, the elected officials, the council people, the state reps, do these people see and understand the work that's happening? And is that translating to more investment in Parks and Rec? Again, going back to the NRPA strategic plan, increased investment is what it's all about.
Yeah. And I think if Parks and Rec professionals aren't careful, the same problem I had when I had a Bitcoin Daily show, I started talking so deep in the weeds that the regular guy their eyes would just gloss over. It's kind of like I'm speaking to French speaking people in English. So what are the kind of messaging tweaks that you think need to be made so that Parks and Rec people that are deep in the system can communicate with the average park goer?
Yeah, I mean, I always kind of challenge staff to think of things, with that elevator pitch, right? Wherever it is, people's attention span is so limited now with social media, right? I think it's like, when you're scrolling, it's like you have 5 seconds. If that didn't catch my eye, I'm keeping going, and I think that translates to real life too, right? So our messaging has to be really simple, really concise. And I think backed with that data, I don't think it's enough anymore just to say like, hey, like we have a really great summer camp, you should sign up. It's, hey, no, here's the benefits that you're getting by doing X programs. And I think that messaging really needs to be out there. But it's all about audience, right? Like if we're talking to consumers, the conversation may be different than Board of Finance members that really need to understand the cost and the impact of either doing it or not doing it.
Yeah.
I think it's tailoring that message to the audience, like with anything,
Yeah. And so the danger is, we used to have 5 minutes of attention span to explain something complex in 5 minutes, and then it went to 50 seconds, and now it's 5 seconds. So with that in mind, what is your 5-second pitch to a stakeholder that's not familiar with this industry because they don't work in it? What are some of all the things you could choose to say in your 5 seconds, 50 seconds with people that you have that maybe you can speak to about Parks and Rec? What is that for you?
I think for me, and again, it's not a rehearsed line, but I think it's Parks and Rec is an essential government service, usually a government service. Parks and Rec is an essential service that are changing health outcomes, quality of life for people across the country. You see it in every community. It looks different everywhere, but at the end of the day, we're changing and shaping lives through programs, parks, and services is really what it's all about.
That's it, Chris. Clip it. That's the one. And we'll iterate over time. But anytime we can get those 30-second sound bites to explain very simply in 30 seconds, that's that. We just need more of it.
Yeah, I think people in this profession need to think of themselves as advocates. They need to think of themselves as salespeople. And I think that's not traditional. When you're working in government, I don't think people think of themselves as salespeople, but essential to my role and essential, I think, to my success is my ability to sell the value proposition of what we're doing in Parks and Rec to bring the money in. And I think people need to get better at being advocates and salespeople for this work because it's a critical work that we're doing.
Well, you heard it from Dr. Joshua. Now, officially, all 350,000 Parks and Rec professionals are in sales and recruitment.
Yeah.
We need you to open your mouth and start talking about Parks and Rec. Because unfortunately, I have found such deep passion and drive for this industry, and it kills me to know that it's almost like the best kept secret. That you have to be an advocate for this industry when you leave work. Because if not, they just don't understand it. They don't live your immersed world in Parks and Rec that you do. And so it really is important to be an advocate for the industry. Otherwise, people just, like you said, you're the first on the chopping block as a result. Well, we're going to have a show just on Bristol because we have not talked at all about that. Maybe we can, at the last part, talk about how y'all incorporated social services into your department.
Yeah, so I think I mentioned we had a retirement in Bristol. The leadership at the time kind of came to me. We're seeing some of the successes already through Parks and Rec. I think only a year, maybe even, I don't even know, a year or so into my role, had the conversation, hey, can we integrate these? Let's explore the opportunity to integrate this in the service. We think there could be overlap. We think there could be synergy with the Youth Service Bureau, with social services. We took that opportunity over, I think, about a 5 to 6 month process to really look at where's the overlap. And we identified stuff that we're like, hey, I think the mission, while it's slightly different, is all interconnected. So with the Youth Service Bureau, we had staff running a field days program, for example, that were bringing kids out on field trips. It was a free program paid through for the youth service grants. We were also at the same time offering a teen adventure camp that was paid for and doing that with a lot more kids. So one of the first things we looked at is, hey, let's retire this, direct people to the teen adventure camp. They'll still get people that can't afford it. We'll scholarship them in, and let's redeploy some of these social workers. So we have social workers actually working in our summer camps, which I think is a unique and innovative approach, right? Coming out of COVID, we saw a lot of behavioral challenges with campers. We've redeployed these social workers into the camps to provide that direct support, way better than a 20-year-old camp director can do. These are licensed people. We're keeping kids in camp. No one's being suspended, things like that. So we looked across the department. Where is the synergy? How does this all work together well? Especially in the social service side, right? We have unhoused, I don't want to say crisis, but I will say crisis. We have an unhoused crisis, unstable housing market in our area where the homeless shelters are at capacity. People have nowhere to go. Naturally, they're coming to the parks. So we had a community service coordinator role that historically was an office position. They'd sit in the office, clients would come to see them, and they'd provide services. We flipped that on its head, and now those workers are actually going out into the parks, doing contact with people where they are to try to get them to connected to services, to get them connected to housing wait lists, things like that never would have been happening had we not done that. So I think we looked at all this overall synergy and how do you mesh that together to deal with community problems. And I think that's what we're doing really well right now in Bristol.
I love this new framework of essential healthcare provider.
Yeah.
Because now you can involve the expertise that probably a camp counselor would not probably, for sure they wouldn't have. Yeah. This is not something they're skilled at dealing with people struggling with depression or homelessness issues or something like that. But now that you position yourself as a healthcare provider, you can get all this expertise now working in parks versus in hospitals.
Yeah. And we think about, in that example, Craig, it's like the goal is to keep kids in summer camp because we know there's a lot of benefits that kids get from being in a safe, structured, fun environment with their peers, right? So historically, when we'd have to make those decisions to throw someone out of camp because of all these behavioral challenges, what happens to that kid, right? They're now home. Parents are still going to be working, so we don't know. We lose track of what happened to that kid. They're in the streets. They're getting into trouble. Maybe they're dabbling in drugs. Maybe they get arrested. All these things are happening. So by putting the social workers into camps, we're keeping more kids tethered to recreation, which is having that better community impact. Do you see what I'm saying? So it's like this domino effect of what's the goal? The goal is to connect people to recreation, keep them involved, keep them engaged, and out of all these other things. You said the word prevention. I think that's a lot of what we're doing with our work.
I love it. I love it. Okay, so one of the last things we do on every show is we say, all right, Dr. Joshua, you're in front of a classroom of undecided college kids, kind of like you were when you didn't know what you were doing. What's your sales pitch to them to give a good testimony to the industry of why they should choose to dedicate their life to Parks and Rec?
I think you want to dedicate your life to Parks and Rec because even though I know I hated this word earlier when I said fun, but the job is truly fun. It's rewarding. It's challenging. It becomes a lifestyle, right? And I think it's so unique and so different than any other career you can pick because you're impacting people's lives every single day. You hinted at it earlier. There's so many different tracks and trajectories. Regardless of what your interest is, there is a place for you in Parks and Recreation. And there's a lot of great opportunities out there to make a difference. The pay is good, certainly at certain levels, and there's great benefits to it. I think we want more and more people to be engaged in this work because it's important, because it's impactful. And you're not sitting behind a desk all day. You're out in the community, you're meeting people. So if you're a social, engaged person that want to make a difference, it's the best career that you can pick.
Yeah, definitely not a desk job. If it's a desk job, it's usually there's like 3 inches of wood that separates you between screaming kids working in the
Yeah.
you're always immersed in just constant activities.
Yeah. And if you're a person that wants every single day you show up to look something different, it's definitely for you, right? There's never two similar days. Every day is unique and challenging, and you never know what's going to be thrown your way. So I personally like that. If you're not into that, you want rigid, structure, it's probably not for you.
Yeah, I love it. Okay, so last tradition we have is our previous guest left a question for you. This is coming from Christine Buteris in Watertown, Wisconsin. And so she wants to know, if you had an unlimited budget for one project that would transform your Parks and Rec community, what would it be and why?
Wow, just one I have to pick? Okay. So there's one park and one property in Bristol. It's called the Hoppers Burge Pond. It's like a nature preserve, but it's really fallen by the wayside. I would love an unlimited dollars to make that a fully ADA accessible trail network where everyone in the city could come and see the benefits of this lake, of this preserve, of the kettles. There's so much there, but it's such an underutilized park space because we don't have the dollars to make it this transformative space I think it can be. So that would be my answer off the top of my head.
Fantastic. And then we have a fun question. If you were a piece of playground equipment, what would it be and why?
Oh my God. Probably a swing set, because I'm just always on the move. I'm always like up and down here or there. And that's, swing set.
Fantastic. All right. So what question do you want to leave for our next victim?
Oh my God. Oh, shoot. What do I have, like 30 seconds to figure that question out?
No, take your time.
I would say I would want to know, what is the most innovative thing you think you're doing right now that's advancing the field of Parks and Rec? So that's a hard question. So I feel bad for whoever's on that 200th show, but they got to be good. I'd say let's think about innovation. What's the thing you're doing that's pushing this field forward?
What is your answer to that question?
Oh, I don't want you to ask me that. No, I think being really responsive to community needs. I think the 7 dimensions. We're also doing a lot with staff engagement. We shifted to a 4-day work schedule for the majority of our staff. So I think we're thinking outside of the box of how to make this a great place to work and deliver for the community. Yeah.
Oh, that's a good one. Well, Dr. Joshua, thank you so much for your time. This felt like a 5-minute interview. I can't believe we just
good.
Like that. This has been great. And look, man, I really appreciate what you're doing for NRPA and volunteering yourself to do a lot of work for this community. If it weren't for Parks and Rec volunteers, we wouldn't have associations, state or otherwise.
Right.
So I really appreciate that.
My pleasure, Craig. Thanks for having me. I'd love to come back and talk about any variety of topics in the future.
Yeah, we'll definitely have you back, and good luck steering the ship for a couple of years. We're praying for you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, take care, man.
Take care.
Bye. All right, so another great interview, our 199th show, our next show starting here in just a few minutes, about 26 minutes to be exact, is our Youth Sports Mastery. That'll be our 200th episode, big milestone for us. I'll just say it's been an absolute pleasure to serve this community, to help understand the story. I talk Parks and Rec 6 hours a day to people like Joshua. And this is such a cool story. This is something you should be proud of. This is something that is going to make forever differences in people's lives at all ages, not just the young kids in sports. That is very important. But even later in life, when you have seniors that are maybe alone and you're helping those people, you're making a difference. And I know y'all see it because you live it. We got to get better at telling that story. And so please, if anyone from our side ever reaches out to you and maybe you feel camera shy or you don't know what you'll say, trust me, when you start talking about what you're passionate about, it just flows from you. So have the courage to come tell people why Parks and Rec is important to you. The message needs to be heard. And just like Dr. Joshua said, it's important that Parks and Rec professionals become full-time advocates nationally, even globally, for the industry of Parks and Rec, because it's needed. And so even though you might be reluctant, you might even be scared, do it for the, I hate to say it, do it for the kids, do it for the children, do it for the less fortunate, do it for those struggling with depression, do it for those that may find themselves, with the police knocking on their door. Don't wait till then to help lift up this industry, because you're going to do a lot for your community, and you're going to prevent a lot of the downstream stuff that can be very negative in life if you don't have robust and healthy Parks and Rec communities. All right, so thank you so much, Dr. Joshua. Thank you so much for your work. Really appreciate you coming on the show, man. And next we have none other than Aaron Locke, who has another phenomenal guest for all things youth sports. That's coming up here shortly. And another great week in Parks and Rec. We go Monday through Thursday, so Thursday's kind of our last day. Tomorrow we have something for the only show we have on Fridays is our Young Professionals Network. And so if you are involved in any way, we're helping young professionals. If you're running a stellar internship program like Bristol, Connecticut, please reach out to me. We would love to have you on our Friday show. Or if you're just an intern, or if you're a college professor teaching kids about Parks and Rec, we'd love to have you on the show. Basically, all things young professionals related in this industry. Friday's your show, along with many other shows that we have coming up as we kind of create this media platform for Parks and Recreation. But I'll be signing off here shortly. Stay tuned in for another great hour of the Daily Parks and Rec Show focused on youth sports. And y'all have an awesome rest of your week. Thanks. Bye.
Welcome to DPRS Media Co., the first media company built for the people behind the Parks and Rec community. We don't just cover on Parks and Rec, we elevate it, we amplify it, we honor it. At the heart of everything we do is one mission: to serve the public servants, the professionals who design, maintain, and lead the parks that shape our communities. Under the Daily Parks and Rec Show, we produce 6 powerful platforms. Leadership in Parks and Rec, a spotlight on directors, superintendents, and visionaries shaping the future of public spaces. Facility maintenance, where the boots hit the ground, a deep dive into the systems, crews, and craftsmanship that keep our parks clean, safe, and beautiful. Young Professionals Network, shining a light on the next generation of Parks and Rec. Students, interns, and mentors sharing how we build a legacy together. Youth Sports Mastery, sponsored by National Academy of Athletics. This series is for coaches, parents, and rec leaders working to make youth sports fun, fair, and meaningful again. The Rec Room, hosted by the passionate leaders of Henry County Parks and Rec. This show brings frontline energy and real-life stories from the field. And the weekly Parks and Rec Post, our official newsletter delivering stories, insights, and community wins every week. We are DPRS Media Co., LLC, a media company with a mission to uplift the professionals who serve every community, every park, every day.